Ever feel like there's this, this little voice in your head just like constantly judging everything you do?
Oh, yeah, definitely.
It's like having a tiny roommate who never pays rent but always has an opinion.
And not always a helpful one, right?
Exactly. So today we're diving into the self-talk workout by Rachel Goldsmith Turow to figure out how to, well, basically evict that negative roommate.
Or at least teach them some manner.
Exactly. So turn that inner critic into like a supportive coach instead.
More like a personal cheerleader, even.
I love that. But before we get into the how-tos, I kind of want to know, is this self-talk stuff really that big of a deal?
Oh, it absolutely is. Research shows a really strong link between constant self-criticism and, mental health issues.
Like what specifically?
Anxiety, depression, even chronic stress. It's not just in your head. It affects how we function every day.
So it's not just a matter of like thinking happy thoughts and everything's magically better.
Right? Turow emphasizes that just deciding to be nicer to ourselves often doesn't cut it.
We need more than just good intentions.
We need mechanisms, actual practices, to shift those ingrained thought patterns.
Okay, so there's got to be a system.
Exactly.
Got it. So one of the first exercises in the book is called Inhale, My Friend, Exhale, My Friend. And I got to admit, I was skeptical at first.
Yeah, it sounds deceptively simple.
It is. Just breathing mindfully. How much impact can that really have?
Well, Turow describes her own experience with it, and the science is fascinating. When we do mindful breathing, it actually calms our nervous system.
So it's slowing down the heart rate, all that?
Yeah, and more. It disrupts what's called the default mode network, or DMN. That's the part of our brain that loves to get stuck in those negative thought loops.
Oh, so it's like hitting the pause button on the negative thought spiral.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You're taking control instead of letting the autopilot run wild.
And Turow students had amazing results with this.
Yeah.
They were using it to create mental space, even in like totally chaotic situations.
Imagine being able to find calm amidst spilled cereal and toddler tantrums.
Right. Proof that small, consistent actions can have a huge impact.
Now, another technique she talks about is spot the success. And I think this is so important because it really addresses our negativity bias.
That tendency to focus on what's wrong instead of what's going right.
Right. We're wired to zoom in on the negative and overlook the positive.
And so this is about intentionally noticing and appreciating even the small wins.
Exactly. It's like rewiring our brains to see the good stuff.
Kind of like training ourselves to have gratitude for the everyday things.
It's very similar to the work of Jon Kabat-Zinn with chronic pain patients.
Oh, tell me more about that.
He found that by shifting focus away from the pain and towards non-painful sensations, patients actually experienced relief.
Wow, so it's like redirecting attention to find some peace.
Exactly. And in the book, Turow shares the story of Ruby, who felt overwhelmed and unappreciated. So she started thanking herself for everything she did.
I love that. Instead of waiting for external validation, she created it for herself.
Exactly. And this ties into the idea of appraisals. It's not just events that shape our emotions, but how we interpret them in our minds.
So like two people could experience the same thing, but have totally different reactions.
Right, because their internal filters are different. Spot the success helps us adjust to those filters to let more positivity in.
Makes sense. Okay, so we've got mindful breathing, we've got celebrating successes. Now, what about meditation?
Ah, yes, the art of observing our thoughts and feelings without getting swept away by them.
Turow has this funny story about bird poop in a teacup to illustrate this.
I love that story. It shows how non-judgmental awareness can bring humor even to messy situations.
So instead of freaking out, you kind of just observe the situation with a sense of detachment.
Yeah, and that has a real impact on the brain. Meditation actually decreases activity in the DMN, that default mode network.
The one that loved those negative loops.
Right, and it strengthens the salience network, which helps us discern what's truly important.
So we can filter out the mental noise.
Exactly. Now, Turow is very honest about the challenges of meditation.
Oh yeah, I bet there's plenty.
She talks about her students dealing with restlessness, boredom, even self-criticism about doing it wrong.
Which is ironic, since it's about non-judgment.
Right, but it highlights that these challenges are a normal part of the process.
So we shouldn't get discouraged if our minds wander.
Exactly. The key is to be kind to ourselves and keep practicing. So we've talked about breathing, celebrating successes, and meditation. Now, let's get into something that might seem a little counterintuitive, allowing all feelings skillfully.
Skillfully, like not just letting our emotions run wild.
Right. It's not about suppressing or ignoring difficult emotions, but about acknowledging them in a mindful way.
So not pretending everything's okay when it's not.
Exactly. Turow points out that trying to force positivity can actually backfire.
Like it's okay to not be okay all the time.
Exactly. It's about recognizing those feelings without judgment.
So how do we do that?
Well, she talks about the self-compassion break, which is basically pausing to connect with our emotional state and offering ourselves kindness.
So like a timeout for our feelings.
Exactly. And then there's the RAIN technique.
Rain, like the weather.
It's an acronym. It stands for recognize, allow, investigate, and nurture.
Oh, so it's a step-by-step process for dealing with tough emotions.
Right. And one thing I really appreciate is Turow's honesty about her own struggles with self-talk.
Even though she's like an expert on the topic.
Exactly. She talks about how those critical voices still popped up for her while writing the book, especially during the pandemic.
Which is so relatable. It's like, even with all the knowledge and practice, it's still an ongoing journey.
Absolutely. There will be ups and downs, progress and setbacks, and that's okay.
So it's about being kind to ourselves throughout the process.
Exactly. Now, Turow also delves into the broader influences that shape our self-talk.
Like what kind of influences?
Well, things like media portrayals, societal expectations, even early childhood experiences.
So it's not just about our individual thoughts, but also the messages we've absorbed from the world around us.
Right. Turow talks about how our culture often emphasizes a narrow definition of success, which can lead to feelings of inadequacy.
Like we're constantly comparing ourselves to others and coming up short.
Exactly. And she also discusses how experiences like bullying or discrimination can have a lasting impact on our self-talk.
So those negative messages can really stick with us.
They can, but the good news is we can challenge them.
So it's about reclaiming our power and defining success on our own terms.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And a big part of that is self-care.
Which isn't selfish like some people might think.
Right. Turow emphasizes that taking care of our well-being is essential for thriving.
It's like putting on your own oxygen mask first.
Exactly. And she compares healthy self-talk to physical exercise.
So we need to work those self-compassion muscles.
Exactly. And just like with exercise, there's no one-size-fits-all approach.
So we need to find what works best for us.
Right. Experiment, try different techniques, and see what resonates.
And remember that progress takes time and effort.
Absolutely. Turow reminds us that it's not about being perfect, but about showing up consistently.
And being kind to ourselves along the way.
Exactly. So as we wrap up this part of our deep dive, let's recap what we've learned.
Okay, so we talked about allowing all feelings, skillfully recognizing that emotions are a natural part of life.
And we explored how societal and cultural influences can shape our self-talk.
And we emphasized the importance of self-care as a foundation for well-being.
It's all about fostering that inner support system.
And remember, this is an ongoing process. Be patient with yourself and celebrate those small wins.
In the final part of our deep dive, we'll tie all these insights together and explore how to create a holistic approach to transforming self-talk.
So we've covered a lot of ground with these techniques for better self-talk, and I'm starting to see how they all fit together.
Like pieces of a puzzle?
Exactly. It's not about just doing one thing, but having a whole toolkit for our minds.
That's a great way to think about it. Just like athletes cross-train, we need a variety of mental exercises.
It keeps things interesting and helps us handle different situations.
Sometimes we need a quick breathing exercise. Other times, it's loving-kindness meditation.
Right. The right tool for the job. But just like with physical fitness, consistency is key.
Absolutely. It's not about being perfect, but about making a conscious effort every day.
And let's be honest, some days that effort is harder than others.
We're human, not robots. There will be days when our motivation dips.
Exactly. And that's where self-compassion comes in.
Turow reminds us that setbacks are normal, and beating ourselves up just makes things worse.
Right. It's like we're adding fuel to the fire of negativity.
Instead, we need to treat ourselves with kindness and understanding.
Like a good coach who encourages us to get back up and try again.
Exactly. So as we wrap up this deep dive, I'm curious, what are your biggest takeaways? Why is this work so important?
For me, it's realizing that self-compassion isn't just about feeling good. It's about unlocking our full potential.
Turow calls it the fuel for becoming our best selves.
And I love that analogy. Because when we're constantly criticizing ourselves, it's like we're dragging around a heavy weight.
It drains our energy and holds us back from taking risks and pursuing our dreams.
But when we cultivate a supportive inner voice, it's like we've shed that burden.
We're free to move forward with confidence and resilience.
It's not just about happiness. It's about living a more fulfilling life.
Exactly. So as we conclude this exploration of the self-talk workout, I want to leave our listeners with this thought.
Okay, I'm listening.
What if self-compassion isn't a reward for being good, but the essential foundation for becoming our best selves?
That's a powerful idea. It's not about earning self-love, but embracing it as our birthright.
Exactly. And as you embark on this journey, remember you don't have to do it alone.
There are so many resources available, therapists, support groups, online communities.
And remember to celebrate every small victory every time you choose kindness over criticism.
Because every step towards a more compassionate inner voice is a step towards a more meaningful life.
Well said. And to help our listeners on their journey, let's provide them with a 10-point summary of what we've learned about transforming self-talk.
Great idea. What do you have in mind?
We discovered that. 1. Self-criticism negatively affects mental health, but we can change those patterns. 2. Mindful breathing calms the nervous system and interrupts negative thought loops. 3. Spot the success, helps counter negativity bias by appreciating achievements. 4. Non-judgmental awareness from meditation reduces rumination and self-criticism. 5. Fail forward mindset encourages action despite fear of failure. 6. Loving kindness meditation fosters warmth and goodwill toward ourselves and others. 7. Allowing all feelings skillfully involves acknowledging emotions without judgment. 8. Recognizing societal and cultural influences on self-talk helps challenge negative messages. 9. Prioritizing self-care is crucial for well-being, not selfish. 10. Embracing self-compassion is the foundation for becoming our best selves.
Excellent summary. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the self-talk workout.
It's been a pleasure exploring these transformative techniques with you.
And to our listeners, remember to be kind to yourselves and keep practicing those self-compassion muscles.